Welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast, where you learn how to extract your business and personal deep wealth. I'm your host, Jeffrey Feldberg. This podcast is brought to you by Deep Wealth and the 90-Day Deep Wealth Experience. When it comes to your business deep wealth, your exit or liquidity event is the most important financial decision of your life. But unfortunately, up to 90% of liquidity events fail. Think about all that time and your hard-earned money wasted. Of the quote-unquote successful liquidity events, most business owners leave 50% to over 100% of the deal value in the buyer's pocket and don't even know it. I should know. I said no to a seven-figure offer and yes to mastering the art and the science of a liquidity event. 2 years later, I said yes to a different buyer with a 9-figure deal. Are you thinking about an exit or liquidity event? Don't become a statistic and make the fatal mistake of believing the skills that built your business are the same ones to sell it. After all, how can you master something you've never done before? Let the 90-Day Deep Wealth Experience and the 9-step roadmap of preparation help you capture the best deal instead of any deal. At the end of this episode, take a moment and hear from business owners like you who went through the Deep Wealth Experience. Ethan Boll is a co-founder of ProAssisting, a next-generation remote fractional executive assistance firm for business owners and C-suite executives. With a background in hospitality and an expert in the executive assisting space, Ethan has held a variety of senior positions. Welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast, and we have a fellow business owner in the house. We are going to go on a terrific journey. Hey, all you listeners out there in Deep Wealth Land, I have a question for you. Are you pressed for time? What a rhetorical question. Of course you are. Here's another rhetorical question. Would you like to know how you can do more in less time, unleash those golden handcuffs, and really enjoy the lifestyle that you went into business to be in the first place? And I know you said yes to all of that. So with that said, Ethan, welcome to the Deep Wealth Podcast. An absolute pleasure to have you with us. And Ethan, I am curious. There's always a story behind the story. What's your story? What got you to where you are today?
Jeffrey, thank you so much for having me. I grew up in a small town in upstate New York. My dad was an entrepreneur. My stepfather was an attorney who owned and ran his own office. So he was an entrepreneur as well. And growing up in that environment, I decided to go to specialty business school off in Boston. And what's funny is that when I traveled abroad to Australia, I played in a band and I started to think about trying to marry my love of business and entrepreneurship with creativity and music in that case. And I came back and started working for Warner Brother Records and as an intern. And as I wrapped up my senior year, I heard about a movie being produced in New York City by Warner Brothers. I leveraged a connection, got an interview, and ended up getting a job as a production assistant in New York City. And that brought me to New York City and kind of launched my executive assisting career, if you will. As the entertainment industry, that role is really the stepping stone to further get up the ladder in the entertainment world. And I ended up working in entertainment for 5 years and realized I kind of still wanted to chase those creative pursuits outside of the office. So I took my executive assisting skills at that point and moved over into advertising, which gave me the time outside of the office to chase those creative pursuits. And then a funny thing happens when you roll over 10 years later and you say, oh my gosh, I have a career as an executive assistant. I really never pictured myself being in that spot. And so fortunately, I had a boss who was extremely supportive. And my wife at that time was also going through her own journey as being an executive assistant to 2 different hedge fund CEOs, as well as the CEO of J. Crew, Mickey Drexler. And you take all of that and you throw in a couple of kids. And we were like, okay, we need to sell our condo here in New York, get out of New York City after 20 years, ended up moving upstate New York, right outside of Rochester. And fortunately, I got another job as an EA, commensurate with my experience and compensation level, which they're few and far between when you get out of major metropolitan areas. My wife was at home with the kids and she got a call from a friend of ours. That friend said, hey, I know this Fortune 100 consultant. She travels the world, needs great support, doesn't care where you are, and doesn't need full time. Are you
Mm-hmm.
interested? And Stephanie was kind of really grappling with the kids and wanting that adult interaction.
Uh-huh.
So she said, sure. And that's when we really did the deep dive on the remote space, the virtual assistant space, really felt that there was a gap that
Mm-hmm.
we could fill based on our experience and knowledge. And we created ProAssisting and we launched in 2018. And so we're approaching the end of our 6th year, which is, it just blows our mind.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we're here providing remote fractional executive assistant support to business leaders, non executive board directors, C suite executives across the country. And what's really funny is that love of entrepreneurship in the beginning part of the story when I was growing up. And now I am finally leading a business as opposed to being an executive assistant. And it's really come full circle.
Ethan, I love that story. There's so many amazing twists and turns to that story. But let me go back to the beginning just for a moment for the benefit of our listeners. So back in the day, I mean, you're at some powerhouse companies. I know a few things change here and there, but really you're in companies that are helping to shape the social fabric of society. I mean, love them or hate them, they're there. They're doing some very interesting things and sometimes some wonderful things that go along with that. And you're now behind the scenes with some movers and shakers. And so for the movers and shakers who are now in the deep wealth community, and maybe they have an admiration if they have an executive assistant, an EA, maybe they're thinking about bringing one on board, maybe they're somewhere in between. I mean, what was going on behind the scenes? What were you experiencing, the good, the bad, the ugly, as an executive assistant that our community should know about so they can appreciate what's really happening in that particular role?
I don't think I'm going out on a limb and saying that high achievers, high performers, business leaders, CEO level type folks are hard charging,
Mm-hmm.
type A, very demanding, hard on themselves, but
Yeah.
also can be hard on people who support and work for them. So, at our level, both Stephanie and myself, we really view the role as a top level executive assistant. And when I say that, I mean someone earning well into the 6 figures,
Mm-hmm.
a 24/7 mentality,
Mm-hmm.
really focusing on all aspects of the principal's life, from being a business partner to a chief of staff, a project manager, assistant slash scheduler, and personal assistant, really being that single point of contact.
Mm-hmm.
The good, the bad, and the ugly is you are that single point of contact. So you're going to be getting the negative.
Yep.
And this was wrong. This didn't work. This
Yes.
person never showed up. This job was terrible. You need to go yell at them. And if you're working for a good principal, you're going to get the good and the great, where it's like, oh my God, thank you so much for saving me that money. Oh my God, I can't believe you caught that. That really made a big difference in my week. And really forming a true relationship. It's a really intimate relationship. So you have to understand that the principals at that level that we're dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
we know that we have to show some compassion to them
Mm-hmm.
to understand their stress, their
Mm-hmm.
personalities, and be okay with that and be okay with being behind the scenes.
And so let me ask you this, because the type of caliber of talent that we're talking about with an executive assistant, at least what you're doing and the people that you're finding and placing them into companies, how as a leader, I'm a hard charging CEO, president, founder, business owner, entrepreneur, fill in the blank. What am I probably not doing? Maybe I'm not aware of to get the most out of a new team member that I'm bringing on board, otherwise known as my EA. Where are some common mistakes that most business owners are making when it comes to the daily interactions?
If you're talking about someone who's never leveraged support before, that is a situation where we usually have to fight the quote unquote, I can do it faster myself
Yeah.
mode, meaning they don't take the time to properly onboard and train their executive assistant to really take over some things on their plate that then they will never have to do again.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't take that second step and think about how much time that is once it's compounded week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out.
Mm-hmm.
And so properly onboarding your executive assistant is paramount.
Mm-hmm.
Trust, understanding that trust is the basis of the whole relationship. And you have to hand over the reins at some point and either let your assistant figure out how they are going to handle the issue or problem that you put before them and resist the urge maybe to fully micromanage all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And once that trust gets built over a period of time and a number of tasks and projects, then and you hand that over, you can be then focused on higher level strategic thinking and really free up your brain space. If I'm talking about someone who's already leveraged an assistant before,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they've had a long-term assistant and they may have forgotten that it does take, again, some onboarding work to get to that space instead of just assuming that you're hiring someone and they're just going to hit the ground running and be perfect. It, given that it's an intimate relationship, it takes time to really build that foundation.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, we feel that within 2 or 3 weeks, you should really start to feel that lift of support in that first month. And then beyond that, it's really what we like to say is a continuous review. It's not about waiting until the 6 month mark or the year mark to say, I would like this different, or I don't want you doing it that way, or could you do it this way? Or you need to have that professional relationship where that can be discussed and handled in the moment as a rolling review, as opposed to setting a date on the calendar and say, we're going to talk about performance then.
And so let me ask you this. So you've covered some of the basics of what we should know. But again, let's go back in time for just a moment. So you started in 2018. You're rolling along 2019, and then the infamous 2020 comes along. Pandemic hits. Walk us through what's going on at that point, Ethan. What are you seeing? What are some of the changes that are happening as a business owner? Really front and center of where the world is now heading. Everything's remote. We're in lockdown. I'm curious, what was going on back in the day?
You bring up the term remote. It's really interesting to me because watching my wife in the early 2000s work in finance, she was handed a BlackBerry.
Mm-hmm.
I was in advertising at the time, and the assistants didn't get BlackBerries. But really, that's kind of the birth of remote work. And there went years, and then 2007, I got my iPhone, and I was thrilled because I could answer an email standing in line at Starbucks. And I am the type A person who wants to handle something when it comes in, treat my email inbox as a to-do list. And so having to pre-iPhone, make sure I was at my desk so I could handle those things, and post-iPhone, being able to do them on the go was a really freeing experience for me. And I frankly was jealous of my wife when she had her BlackBerry before then, even though she started to resent it. So when you bring up remote work and pre-COVID, moving into COVID, it's funny because I feel that a lot of the C-suites out there just took it for granted, and hybrid work was happening all the time. Mm-hmm. And now the big push is to say, okay, remote work doesn't work. And I'm like, life is an area of gray. As a business owner, initially when we launched, we had to explain our philosophy around remote work to both clients and executive assistants. Mm-hmm. After COVID, and when March 13th of 2020 hit, or was it 16th, when everything really shut down, 2 weeks after that, I didn't have to explain remote work to anyone. And that continued. And so our business definitely grew, but it didn't explode because I think really for that first year, everybody was holding their power and powder, and every business owner was like, how is this really going to shake out? But now I think what we're seeing is with the rise of SaaS products, software as a service products, and fractional workers, whether you're talking a fractional chief marketing officer or an IT professional or bookkeeper or executive assistant, is really allowing smaller companies, new startup companies to punch above their weight without a money or make that big hire. Like I need to hire a CFO or I need to hire a COO or a CMO. You can get that fractionally now. And with people who have that experience. And so I think it's a fascinating time to be running a business and being able to stay as lean as possible, as long as possible, and grow appropriate to what your business is doing.
And Ethan, while we're going down this track, it'd be helpful if you can give a little bit of context and differentiation, because I know for myself, as an example, when we talk about a remote executive assistant, a remote assistant, you hear different things from different people out there. And for a lot of people, when we think of that, okay, we're thinking somebody who possibly is offshore. Maybe English isn't necessarily the first language. We think of all these different stereotypes that you see out there on the internet with all these big rooms, lots of people. It's noisy. You're one of many clients that they have, and all kinds of crazy things that are going on. So from that perhaps stereotype, you'll tell us truth or fiction, to where you're at, what you're doing, how your team is operating at. What are the differences? What can we expect?
That's why it's such an interesting time. I mean, you go all the way back to 2007 when Tim Ferriss released the 4-Hour Work Week. That book really lionized virtual assistants overseas and told people that they could get a $5 virtual assistant overseas to run their $1 million business. And you know what? If you can really source a great $5 an hour overseas assistant to focus on specific things in your business that they can take off your plate and it works, that's fantastic. But what Stephanie and I found when we were looking at the overall virtual assistant space in 2017 is that you had the overseas option. You have a lot of virtual assistant companies based in the US who are using US people to perform the assistant work, but those folks are sometimes leveraging or being responsible for 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 clients a month. And those companies, a lot of them are charging in that $40, $45 an hour range. And then turning around and compensating their assistant $20, $22, $24 an hour. And when we realized that, and that was kind of the model that was taken from overseas, it was just paying more so you could get a US based assistant. Our executive assistant experience sent bells ringing off of, this doesn't work for you. You're a 6-figure executive assistant in a major metropolitan area. You're usually only working for 1, 2, or maybe 3 principals. And so that's where we saw the gap between what a virtual assistant US-based company provides and what a full-time executive assistant provides. And there are a lot of 6-figure executive assistants in metropolitan areas who want to move outside of those metropolitan areas. And in our model, we found, even previous to starting ProAssisting, when we were leading teams of assistants, that 3-to-1 executive to assistant ratio really works. And so what we do is we don't charge by the hour. We charge a flat retainer rate, and we pass 80% of that on to our assistants. And so what that allows is that allows our assistants to make north of $50 an hour. That allows them to treat themselves as their own business under our umbrella. It allows for consistent compensation, and they get 1, 2, or 3 clients that they can focus on Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And that's where they are really able to create that true principal EA partnership and really mimic full service support from a full-time executive assistant.
So what's interesting, what you're sharing with us is you're providing really talented individuals. They're career-minded executive assistants. This is all they do, US-based. They know the language, they know the cultures, they can get the little nuances that go on in the language that sometimes, and again, this is no deference to people who aren't born in the US or are outside the US. There's cultural things that if you're not in the country, if you weren't raised or born in any particular country, you're going to miss things that are there. And so I'm wondering, how does that make a difference, Ethan, from what you've seen with your US-based, highly trained executive assistants as they go into powerhouse corporations, CEOs, entrepreneurs, business owners who are really making a difference out there? How does that make a difference, quite bluntly, compared to some of the other options out there? And they'll remain nameless. They are what they are. We all know where we can go and what that could look like. But where will we see some of the differences? And where I'm driving this from, Ethan, at Deep Wealth, in the Deep Wealth Mastery Program, our 9-step roadmap, 2 X factors, it's all about how do you grow your company? And part of that's the culture, part of that's the team. The better the team, the more in tune the team is, the better off you're going to be as really a company out there making a difference, having the opportunity to create a market disruption. As a CEO, as a leader, if I have more of my time back, I can spend that time that I would have been doing activities maybe I'm not the best in, maybe it's eating up the clock. I can now take that time back and figure out, okay, how do I create a market disruption? How do I go into a new area, solve a new problem that no one's talking about? So from that vantage point, How can you and Stephanie, ProAssisting, how do you help unlock that?
First, we partner our EAs with clients based on time zone.
Okay.
So you're aligned from between 9 to 5. You
Mm-hmm.
are aligned with your EA. We provide after hours and weekend support in atypical situations or if you're
Mm-hmm.
traveling. We want to be that go-to person that you text, call, email,
Mm-hmm.
Slack message, any way that you prefer to reach out, that you have that true interaction. And that allows for that feeling. And given that we limit the number of clients that our assistants support to 3, that really does allow them to be a true member of the team, be that go-to person that people are going to start reaching out to instead of the principal.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is to keep as many things off the principal's plate as possible and take things off that they don't need to be worried about. So with us, first it's time zone. Next, we focus on when we're deciding to partner with an executive assistant, their hard experience, the
Mm-hmm.
background, what's on their LinkedIn profile, what's on their resume.
Mm-hmm.
We need to see that hard experience and it needs to ring true to us
Mm-hmm.
before we then have a conversation. But
Mm-hmm.
then, and you got to something, you said this earlier, the nuance in conversation, the
Right.
nuance in facial expressions,
Mm-hmm.
having the emotional intelligence and the soft skills to interact with everybody from the person who cuts your grass to the chairman of the board or your most important client. And you want someone who has that professionalism, puts a great face on your office and your company in lieu of you. And when those outside people understand that Jane sitting in your office is the go-to person, you're going to notice, or maybe not, that you're getting called less, you're getting emailed less. And those things are happening behind the scenes. And so, yeah, it's Danny Meyer, the restaurateur in New York City. He says, look, we're a 49-51 company, meaning we look 49% at the hard skills. And then we look at 51% at the soft skills and the
Mm-hmm.
emotional intelligence,
Sure.
because it's easier to teach the hard skills and to align on the hard skills. The soft skills are harder and to communicate, and you just have to, and that's the thing, when they have the experience and it's shown on their resume, that's an indicator that they do have the soft skills to sit in the seat for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
and that they do get to create that relationship and know the ins and outs of quote unquote people. I don't know, does that help answer the question?
Yeah, and it raises, of course, another question as as we go down this. Again, you'll hear me talk a lot about the Deep Wealth Mindset Roadmap because this is really where, for business owners, we're helping them look at how do I grow this business? How do I increase the value of my business when I want to sell it, whether that's 20 years away or 2 years away or something in between? And then how do I optimize for my post-exit life? And so with the 9-step roadmap, one of the steps that we talk a lot about is step 6 advisory team. And on the team, I would put, particularly for the founder or the CEO, president, an EA. And so I'm wondering, how are you looking at matching up an EA that you have on the team already to, let's say I'm coming up today, okay, Ethan, let's work together. Here I am. Find me somebody who can really make that difference. What are you looking for? What are some of the red flags? Okay, this is not going to be a match. Both great people, but for A, B, C, and D reasons, it's not going to work. Oh, look at this one over here. Okay, yeah, these criteria are in place. It's going to work. How are you sourcing and matching to get optimal results? What does that look like?
On the client side, it's all about alignment.
Okay.
And it's all about us understanding what our business model actually is and how that can fit into your life.
Okay.
And so if that's not aligned,
Uh-huh.
we're going to have problems right out of the gate, because a lot of times either people say they need an executive assistant, you partner them with a great EA, and then they never leverage the support
Mm-hmm.
because they can't get out of that rut of, I need to offload these things to an EA, but
Mm-hmm.
it's going to take me too long to train or show what I need done. And there are tricks of the trade to really speed that up.
Okay.
Or the other issue is someone saying, oh, I just have a couple little things that they can handle and take off my plate. And then you partner them with an EA and it's a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And they just push everything to the
Mm-hmm.
EA in a really short period of time. And so as long as we're aligned on what the needs are and that they do align with our business model, and then it comes about partnering them with someone.
Hmm.
And the thing is that when you start dealing with an executive assistant at a higher level,
Hmm.
someone who's been doing it for a number of years in the C-suite for most likely the CEO or business owner, and has had that partnership for years in a couple of different spots on their resume, we really feel once we feel the connection on the emotional intelligence and the work ethic and the soft skills
Hmm.
combined with that experience, they're really industry agnostic and principal agnostic.
Okay.
And we're not a shop that's going to have 20 assistants waiting in the wings and going to tell you you need to talk to 5 of them and pick which best ones. Because frankly, if I had 20 assistants waiting in the wings, I wouldn't sleep at night because I know they need to make money and have clients. So when we bring on an EA, we're going through our deep dive on them to make sure they're checking all of our boxes
Hmm.
so we can commit to them. And we
Hmm.
know we can go back and put them with pretty much anyone who fits our business model on the client side,
Hmm.
and they will be successful. And so we are a person to person business. We don't always get it right every time, but I do pat ourselves on the back for being really good at getting it right most of the time. That is proven out by the long-term relationships that we have with clients going back 5 years since the inception of our business.
And let me ask you this, because I'm sure our listeners are wondering, okay, this all sounds really good. Always but what's this going to cost? What's it looking like on a monthly, on a yearly basis? And Ethan, I know, and you'd be so right to say, well, Jeffrey, it really depends on who we're looking at, the type of company, what your needs are. But generally speaking, back of the envelope, what are we looking at?
Going back to our business model, the 3-to-1 executive to assistant ratio,
Hmm.
our pricing starts at $3,000 a month for
Okay.
1/3 the resources of an executive assistant. That is support Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, after hours, and on weekends, as I said, in atypical situations or if you're traveling. And they take 3 clients like that and they feather the work in as needed throughout the day. It's not based on hours. Obviously, time is part of it. So if you took 177 hours, which is Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, you divide it by 3, you're in the ballpark in terms of the time
Hmm.
component. But with our executive assistants, you also have to realize you're paying for their experience, their
Hmm.
hard experience, and their soft skills. You're paying for their exclusivity,
Okay.
meaning you know that they are only partnered with a maximum of 2 other clients. So you're going to be getting those responses and feedback quickly during the day. And then the other thing that you're getting, which a lot of people overlook or can't conceptualize, is that when you start partnering with an executive assistant, there becomes legacy knowledge that builds up inside of that assistant about you and your business and your processes and your clients and prospects and your community that builds over time and provides more value and makes them more efficient and allows you to have a shorthand conversation with them. And in 5 minutes, your to-do list of 10 things goes down to 2. And that does take time and it takes trust and partnership. But that is where the real leverage of an EA comes to shine. And there
Hmm.
is a price on that. And so for 3,000 a month, 36,000 a year, we don't lock any of our clients into long-term agreements. We think that is a great value proposition. And remember, 80% of that goes directly to the assistant. We're basically just an agency that is a conduit and around making sure that the client is aligned with the rules of the road as well as the EA. And
Hmm.
once that alignment is there, you take it from there. And the beautiful thing is that we do offer higher level. Like, so you're at 1/3 resources, maybe you need more, we can go to 50% resources or even 2/3, depending on who your EA is and what the
Hmm.
availability, and that's getting down the road. But a lot of that comes through in the discovery calls that we have.
Okay, interesting. And so once the EA is placed, you're now in the background. If I'm having any difficulties, am I able to, Ethan, come back to you and the team? Hey, here's what's coming up. Can you help me with this? Or what would you suggest? Are you inserting yourself in those instances or do you play a role? What does that look like?
We do play a role. We play a
Mhm.
role in coaching the client. We play a
Okay.
role in coaching the EA when needed. Sometimes we have to have difficult conversations with the client about their expectations. Sometimes we have to have difficult conversations with the EA about meeting those expectations if they're in line with our business. We're kind of that remote HR department in the sky for you and your EA. And over the past 5 years, what's funny with the business is, I'm sure you know, in the beginning, you have to take all comers, anybody who walks through the door. And now we're much more selective through our discovery conversations on, are we aligned? Can we have that conversation and make sure we're going to knock it out of the park? And that helps us get there in terms of making sure that we are aligned. We've worked with a number of clients who have brought on an assistant as 1/3 resource, moved up to 2/3 resources, get to the point where they need a full-time assistant. And then we help them source that assistant, interview that assistant, train that assistant, and then back out of the relationship professionally. So again, going back to that, it's a beautiful time to start a business because there are so many options as you grow to meet your needs, as opposed to getting something that is more firepower than you need, if you will, at that moment. And you're taking a much bigger risk from a budgetary standpoint.
And so what it sounds like, when you match somebody, Ethan, you're also providing peace of mind. If there's any issues that come up, if that EA moves on to other areas, they get abducted by aliens, as I like to say, I can go back to you. I don't have to worry about it. You're there behind the scenes. You'll find somebody. Life goes on relatively uninterrupted. Would I be on base, off base with that?
Yeah, no, totally on base. That's the name of the game. That being said, we do encourage our clients and our assistants to have those open, honest communication and conversations. Our assistants are pros. They've done this. They've sat in the seat for years. We encourage our clients to not be afraid of criticism, of asking questions. And the same goes for our EAs. And we constantly check in with our EAs monthly, but we also try and stay out of the relationship. I'm not here trying to pester the client to constantly give me feedback. I leave the ball more in the client's court to come back to us if they have questions or things aren't going well. I think that's part of the reason why we want to serve the higher level EA community, as opposed to trying to take someone that's never done the role and train them up and put them in spots.
Interesting. And let me ask you this. So thankfully, we're looking in the rearview mirror when it comes to the pandemic. So the pandemic is well behind us. Hopefully it'll stay that way. But that said, some things really changed forever. Society will never go back in many ways to where we were pre-pandemic. And when it comes to finding world-class talent, we've heard a lot about that, of people leaving, people coming back, and everything else in between. Without using someone like yourself, you and the team, Ethan, to help find world-class executive assistants, what are we up against? So a listener who's saying, you know what, I hear Ethan, that's all fine and good, but you know what, I'll do this on my own. I will find an executive assistant. I don't want to have a middle person. I will have the savings go back to my pocket and life is good. And that's always a choice. There's never a free lunch. There's always costs that come with whatever you choose.
Yep.
So for that listener who's saying, I'll just do it on my own. I don't need Ethan and the team, even though they've been doing this forever and they know all the ins and outs and they have all the connections. I'm going to go on my own. I'll figure this out. I'll do it. What's in store for me? What can I expect, particularly post-pandemic now?
I think that's awesome. We encourage our executive assistants, when they have the resources, to find clients outside of their relationship with ProAssisting. We have, our first session was this past Monday, launched the ProAssisting Academy. The back half of the training focuses on how EAs can present themselves and start their own business and work for clients as opposed to bosses. And there are a plethora of EAs out there that have hung their shingle, if you will, and are accepting clients. And what's great is you can go, we started ProAssisting initially to fill myself and Stephanie up with clients. And that was an easier sell because you're talking directly to the person you're actually going to be working with, as opposed to someone like me, who I'm going to partner you with someone.
Sure.
So we're all encouraging of that. In terms of where to find them, I mean, you need to just look at LinkedIn and look at searching the internet for remote executive assistant or virtual assistant, or there are a lot of options out there. I also feel, which is a space we're not in right now, but
Mhm.
I think targeted hybrid work is a really interesting thing from a fractional independent contractor slash service provider model
Mhm.
where, those middle market cities or even those larger cities where someone needs an assistant, but they do need someone to, when it happens, wait at their home for the contractor to show up so they can give them an estimate or
Mhm.
do something in person that can mitigate or help in a way. So part of our training is encouraging that kind of thought process in terms of where do you live?
Mhm.
If you do live in Nashville, Tennessee, there may be a real need for that targeted hybrid approach as
Mhm.
opposed to fully remote. What we are seeing, though, no doubt about it, is that executive assistants know they can move the needle remotely. And
Mhm.
a lot of them long to continue to do that, even when they're being called back into the office. And I think C suites are coming to an inflection point where they're not going to be allowed to not have a hybrid work policy
Mhm.
or the understanding the expectations around answering that email at 8:30 at night or 9 at night on a Sunday afternoon.
Mhm.
And pre-pandemic, that was just kind of assumed that would happen. And technology sped up and came along to where that would happen. So I think as we move beyond the pandemic, we're just, again, at a really interesting time.
Mhm.
And I just keep banging the drum on the idea that there are so many options out there
Mhm.
and at various price points, providing various services to meet your needs. And so it allows you to use a scalpel instead of a hammer.
And Ethan, let me ask you this. As we start to go into wrap up mode, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about artificial intelligence. I mean, every day there's a new headline. We're breaking new ground. And there's a school of thought which is really taking a view the glass is half full or maybe half empty. They're saying, oh, this technology is so great. We're going to just be able to do everything and anything. And the glass half empty as well is also going to replace the entire workforce. We're not going to need a lot of positions anymore because AI is going to do that. Where are you on that? What do you see? And as anyone's guess, I'm asking this question. It can change by the time this episode comes out. What we're talking about now could become obsolete and new things are on the scene. But AI and keeping a leader, president, CEO organized and replacing a human executive assistant, is that something on the radar? Is it way out there? What's your best guess at this point?
Jeffrey, I'm going to be honest with you here. I was kind of like an ostrich. I had my head stuck in the sand around AI. I'm very up on tech.
Yep.
I know that a lot of AI is happening behind the scenes without us even knowing it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that does help us. When
Yes.
Google populates a calendar invite with the information from the flight I just booked automatically, that's a great help. But it's stuff like that happening behind the scenes where you don't have to take any action. Then ChatGPT came out and that's the gun went off. And I had to pull my head out of the sand. I had to sit there and say, how is this going to change our business? And it's scary when something like that comes along that's looking your business right in the eyes and saying, what are you going to do? Frankly, that is a reason why we launched the ProAssisting Academy, the training side of our business, to connect with the executive assistant side of our business. We really feel that a differentiator at our level, meaning higher level executive assistants, truly forming a personal partnership with your principals that is interacting day in and day out, leveraging their emotional intelligence and soft skills is a differentiator.
Mm-hmm.
And that a lot of our clients at their level want to know that their EA is leveraging AI on their behalf
Mm-hmm.
because they don't want to think about how can I leverage an AI prompt to get what I need done here. What they do want to know is I can tell my EA, hey, I need to write this letter. Can you throw something into AI and see what it comes up with? Maybe throw on some human pixie dust. Then you pass it to me and let me take a look at it. Those kind of things are, I think, a value add. That being said, I think when it comes to finding time on a calendar or finding the right flights or giving me a list of general contractors in my zip code to redo my bathroom, all of those kind of things, I think we are going to get to a point where Siri or Google or any of the other voice assistants will potentially be getting much better. So from our perspective, it's really about differentiating with emotional intelligence, the soft skills, the personal touch. But as you said, we don't know where it's going and how it's all going to shake out. So my head is not in the sand anymore. We are tackling it fully head on and seeing and learning how we can incorporate it into our workflows and what we do.
So Ethan, you can tell me if I'm on base or off base. Really what I'm hearing you say, and it's a theme that I've heard with other world-class experts out there, the thought leaders that we've spoken to on the Deep Wealth podcast. Really what you're saying is, Jeffrey, it doesn't have to be an either or. Either AI in its entirety or the human side in its entirety. Why not blend the two? So what I'm hearing you say is a really good executive assistant will know how to leverage AI to get things done perhaps a little bit quicker, free up that EA's time to work on other more meaningful things, perhaps that AI isn't there yet. Thoughts about that?
Yeah.
How would you?
Oh, it's a both and.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because why would you want to not have the AI be able to do what it can do? And then why would you not want to have the executive assistant who can leverage that? I think we're a long way off in terms of replacing the higher level executive assistant.
Yep.
But as I said, I think there are going to be interesting things coming around that we don't see yet. And the trick is to stay up to date on it and to be smart on it and see how you can incorporate it as it's coming. But it's definitely both and, not either or.
So Ethan, really, as we go into wrap-up mode here, what I'm hearing you say is that you and the team at ProAssisting, you're matching type A charging, people who are making a difference out there, all the business founders, the CEOs, the presidents, you're finding very high-level executive assistants. And just like today, I can bring on board a fractional chief financial officer or a fractional chief marketing officer. I can bring on board through you, through ProAssisting, an executive assistant who would likely cost me over six figures if I had that person 100%. But through you, you'll find that person at really a third of the investment for that. And behind the scenes, you're there. If there's any hiccups or for continuity kinds of things that come up, you're really there behind the scenes to put that pixie dust in, as you say, and match that relationship on the business side, get that going, and make sure everyone's off to a smooth start. How am I doing with that?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. And that 1/3 resources satisfies about 70% of our clients. The remaining 30% end up increasing their resources over time or come in at a higher level based on our discovery call. But yeah, again, it's just such an exciting time. I read a book recently by Arthur Brooks called From Strength to Strength.
Sure.
And it was very inspiring because I'm about to turn 50 this year, and being a career executive assistant and then seeing how I was able, along with my wife, we were able to transition what we were doing into a business. And then now potentially showing other EAs how to do the same thing, what technology and how startups are going and philanthropy and business. It's offering a lot of options in terms of what are you going to do with the second half of your career. And a lot of people who were successful in that first half of their career, they leave those companies and they don't have support anymore. And they realize, look, I want great support. I don't need full time, and I don't care where you live. And that's where we come in. So.
No, it's interesting. And thank you for making me aware of this. And it's so true. I can, so to speak, dip my toe in the water, start off with a third of an executive assistant's time. If I really like what I'm seeing and I say, you know what, that one decision this past month, that EA has an ROI 10 times this. Hey, Ethan, let's go from a third to 2/3, maybe to full time. I have that option, and options are always nice. Am I correct with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, terrific. Well, Ethan, one other question before we go into wrap up mode. And if it's really from a listener side of things, if there's one thing that you would have them do, because at every episode, before they go into that next phone call or meeting or pick up on those emails, we want to say, okay, do this one thing that can really move the dial for you in the business. So when it comes to what we've been talking about, what you're doing at ProAssisting, when we're looking at, hey, let's improve our culture, let's free up some of our time, let's improve the team by bringing on world-class talent. If a listener could do one thing from your world, what would that one thing be? What would be that one action that a listener could do that could really move the dial?
how is your business growing and what things are you changing to make that happen? And we've had those seasons in our business over the last 5 years. I guess the one thing would be just have an open mind and understand that there are so many options out there to accomplish your specific needs specifically, that it really aligns with the cost and your budget and your needs. And again, it's an amazing time to run a business.
Some words to the wise. And so with that, Ethan, it's a great segue to begin our wrap up. And I have a really fun question. This is a tradition that we have every guest. I have the privilege, the honor to ask this question. So let me set the question up for you. I want you to think about the movie Back to the Future. And in the movie, you had that magical DeLorean car that will take you to any point in time. So Ethan, the fun part is tomorrow morning, you look outside your window. Not only is the DeLorean car there curbside, door is open, waiting for you to hop on in, which you do. And you're now going to go back to any point in your life. Ethan, as a young child, a teenager, whatever point in time it would be, what are you telling your younger self in terms of life lessons or wisdom? Or, hey, Ethan, do this, but don't do that. What would that sound like?
I have a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old boy, 2 boys. And obviously,
oh, you're busy.
Stephanie and I say this all the time. I guess I would go back to my 12-year-old self and tell him what we tell our boys, which is the goal in life is to meet all of your responsibilities, but have as much fun as possible. And that it's being on time, doing what you say you're going to do, treating people with empathy and respect, caring for the less fortunate. All of that is meeting your responsibility while having as much fun as possible.
I absolutely love that, because really, from both ends, it's a win for everyone involved in your life. You're respecting them. You're doing what you say you're going to do, but you're taking care of yourself. You're going to have fun along the way. And when you really blend the two together, what a terrific, that's a perfect storm just for having fun, getting things done, being known as a go-to person, someone I can trust, someone who is really out there making things happen. Love that. And for our listeners, you heard it right from Ethan, from the trenches. What a terrific takeaway as well. Ethan, it's official. This is a wrap. I want to thank you so much for your insights and your wisdom today. And this is going to be in the show notes for our listeners who want to find out more about ProAssisting, or perhaps have a question for you specifically, Ethan. Where's the best place online that someone can reach you?
I'm very active on LinkedIn, Ethan Bull on LinkedIn, and ProAssisting.com. You can ask us a question there. I get all of those emails, and I love even having discovery calls with people who never end up becoming clients, because a lot of times on those calls, I'm asking a question or pointing something out that they totally didn't think about. And if I had a doctor and his physician wife who run a company have one of those calls with me, and I frankly said, look, we are not the right service, but this is what you need. And I went through that list of what they need. And I do have a background in healthcare too. So I was speaking a little bit their language as a referral fee. What can I send you? I'm like, you're not, no. And he said, look, if anybody in your family has a problem with their back, send them to us. We will take care of them for free. This was fantastic. And that's kind of how I want to look at it and be known as, just that go-to person. And when the stars align and our service is right for you, hey, we're here. But if they're not, I really want to be known as that person who's going to point you in the right direction.
What a terrific attitude of service and going the extra mile, Ethan. And really want to thank you for that. And again, for listeners, all of this is in the show notes. It's a point and click. It doesn't get any easier. Take Ethan up on his offer. Have a discovery call with him. Perhaps you'll find some blind spots. Here at Deep Wealth, we love to say, does the business run without you? And for most business owners, sadly, the answer is no. Ethan's a resource to turn that no into a yes. So on that note, Ethan, again, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom. And as we absolutely love to say here at Deep Wealth, Ethan, may you continue to thrive and prosper while you remain healthy and safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The Deep Wealth experience was definitely a game changer for me.
This course is one of the best investments you will ever make, because you will get an ROI of 100 times that. Anybody who doesn't go through it will lose millions.
If you don't have time for this program, you'll never have time for a successful liquidity.
I mean, it was the best value of any business course I've ever taken. The money was very well spent.
Compared to when we first began, today I feel better prepared, but in some respects, maybe less prepared, not because of the course, but because the course brought to light so many things that I thought we were on top of that we need to fix.
I 100% believe there's never a great time for a business owner to allocate extra hours into his or her week or day. So it's an investment that will yield results today. I thought I will reap the benefit of this program in 3 to 5 years down the road. But as soon as I stepped forward into the program, my mind changed immediately.
There was so much value in the experience that the time I invested paid back so much for the energy that was expended.
The Deep Wealth experience compared to other programs is the top. What we learned is very practical. Sometimes you learn stuff that is great to learn, but you never use it. The stuff we learned from Deep Wealth experience, I believe is going to benefit us both.
I've done an executive MBA. I've worked for billion-dollar companies before. I've worked for smaller companies before I started my business. I've been running my business successfully now for getting close to a decade. We're on a growth trajectory. Reflecting back on the Deep Wealth, I knew less than 10% what I know now. Maybe close to 1% even.
Hands down the best program in which I've ever participated. And we've done a lot of different things over the years. We've been in other mastermind groups, gone to many seminars, workshops, conferences, retreats, read books. This was so different. I haven't had an experience that's anything close to this in all the years that we've been at this. It's 5-star, A+.
I would highly recommend it to any super busy business owner out there. And Deep Wealth is an accurate name for it. This program leads to deeper wealth and happier wealth, not just deeper wealth. I don't think there's a dollar value that could be associated with such an experience and knowledge that could be applied today and forever.
Are you leaving millions on the table? Please visit www.deepwealth.com/success to learn more. If you're not on my email list, you'll want to be. Sign up at www.deepwealth.com/podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, if it added value, if you walked away with some new insights and strategies, please leave a review on your favorite podcast channel. Reviews help us reach new listeners, grow the show, and continue to create content that you'll enjoy. And as we wrap up this episode, as always, please stay healthy and safe.